I was born with a big mouth. The day my mom gave birth to my little brother, at the age of 4, I said my first words. Here comes the debt collector. My dad heard me. He took a needle and poked me in the mouth. I bled a lot. My grandma took me in her arms in pain. She scolded my father for being a child. Are you so mean? I stared at my dad without blinking. In a voice that only my grandma could hear, he was going to die. The next day the big truck my dad was driving had an accident. It was crushed into a puddle of mud when we found it. After my mom got my dad's funeral money, she took my brother to Shenzhen. She left me with my grandma. He said my dad was killed by me. I'm a born debt collector. I stared at my brother in his arms. I thought to myself, your brother is the debt collector. Why did you say I was a debt collector? From that day on, I rarely saw my mom. People in the village didn't know that I had spoken. Children and adults alike. They all shouted at me in a mute voice when they passed by. Some nasty kids would throw mud at me. The good and evil of children is pure. My grandma went door to door with her arms folded, scolding me from door to door. It didn't help much. That day when my grandma entered the house, I was watching the pot on the stove. My grandma took out a first-grade language book from his cloth pocket, pulled out a first-grade language textbook. He touched my head. Lovingly said, "Kiss. Today I helped someone to work. They gave it to me as payment for my work. Grandma will teach you how to read, okay?" I shook my head. I don't want to read. I don't want to read. It's not as fun as counting ants. Grandma, who used to be gentle, lost her temper. She looked at me sharply. If you don't want to read, don't eat dinner. Eat when you're ready. 2 hours after the meal, I found Grandma. With my hands in the air, I said, I want to learn how to read. It wasn't that I had thought it through. It's that I realized that if I really didn't want to learn how to read, Grandma really doesn't want to cook and eat. I am so hungry. Grandma saw that I was getting the hang of it. With a few smiles on her face, rushed to serve me rice. Grandma knows that Zoe is the most obedient. After dinner, we'll recognize words. From that day on, Grandma taught me a word every day. He didn't know it himself, so he asked the neighbors. By the time I was 8 years old, I could already recognize hundreds of words. I could write. I could communicate normally with my grandma. I had a writing tablet. It's rare. It was when my mom moved in Shenzhen. Threw it away like garbage. Grandma went to give him a hand. Then she secretly picked it up and gave it to me. Grandma knew I could talk. Just wouldn't talk. He told everyone that I was just a nobleman's language. Late the night I turned 12. Grandma gave me a big bowl of longevity noodles with wheat noodles on top. There were 2 golden poached eggs on top. It was also accompanied by 2 small turquoise and green bok choy. It looked excellent. I ate with my mouth full of oil. I waved my hand at my grandma, signaling for her to eat it while it's still hot. Grandma looked at me with a smile, did not move her chopsticks and ate the longevity noodles. Grandma's Zoe wants to be healthy for the rest of her life. Zoe is 12 years old. What birthday wish? I bit my head on the chopsticks and thought for a while. I brought paper and a pen. I wrote it down with one stroke. To be with my grandma forever. To have a happy home. Inside the house, the grandparents and grandchildren were warm and affectionate. Outside the house, the wind and sand are whistling. It was vaguely raining when there was a knock at the door. I inhaled the fragrant noodles. I wondered who could be here. I don't have many good neighbors in my house. I have a widowed wife with a mute daughter. Usually people are avoided. Fear of getting into trouble. I looked out and saw my mom. She led my brother into the door. Tired and exhausted, she put her bag on the bed. I was very happy in my heart. Mom knew it was my birthday. Did she come back specially to celebrate my birthday? Mom also saw me and the longevity noodles in front of me. He touched his eyebrows deeply. Today is your birthday. My brother took his hand. Mom, I am hungry. I want to eat fried eggs too. My mom didn't pay any attention to my brother. She just stared at me dead in the face. I nodded my head, indicating that today is my birthday. Mentally, I was a little excited to see if my mom had bought me a present. Mentally recoiled away again. In my mind, there was no way he would come back alone for my birthday. My mom suddenly rushed up in force. Lumpy slapped me. And then cried out. I knew you'd be a dead man. Why don't you go and die? I was slapped by this slap blindfolded, face quickly swollen. At this time, my grandma came into the house. Seeing me being beaten, rushed over and hugged me in pain. You're hitting a child for no reason. Today is Zoe's 12th birthday. If you're going to have a seizure, get out of here. My mom cried and laughed. Paralyzed on the floor. With a finger pointing at me, this bitch girl, grams me Mom. I'll be able to put a down payment on a house tomorrow. Today, Zaire burned down the carport of someone else's electric car. I lost more than $200,000. I've been working hard for 8 years. The $200,000 I saved is gone. The neighborhood won't let me bring Zaire to live. They forced me to come back overnight. He looked at me with tearful eyes. What kind of disaster are you? You cursed your father to death, and now you're cursing me and your brother. Why don't you go to hell? I beg you. You go to hell, okay? I was hissed by his voice. The roar of his anger subdued the tears, gathering quickly in my eyes. I don't understand. According to him, it was clearly my brother who set fire to the man carport. Why would it be my fault? Grandma pushed me. Zoe, you take your brother to bed first. Grandma will come and talk to your mom. I nodded my head, trying to take Zaire's hand. But my mom shouted at me, you dumb son of a bitch. Don't touch my son. If someone else said that, my grandma would have cussed at him for 300 rounds with her arms folded. She would have scolded him until he kowtowed and begged for forgiveness. But it was my mom who said that. Grandma didn't know what to do. I lay in bed with tears in my eyes. Didn't sleep all night. My eyes were like walnuts. It was late at night before Grandma lay down next to me, sighed. He took me into his arms. Zoe, don't blame your mom. It hasn't been easy for her all these years. The next day I brushed my teeth and washed my face for school as usual. I treated my mom like nothing. For so many years. She didn't care about me. Instead of asking me, she called me a goddamned mute. What's wrong with being dumb? I only want my grandma. I don't want to recognize this mother. She doesn't deserve to be my mom. My mom's been back in the village for a few days. She's been busy transferring Zaire's school registration back to the village. She also took Zaire to the streets to meet relatives, and raised the 8-year-old Zaire to be a bratty, unruly child who thought she was a big city kid and looked down on the village. Zaire thought he was a big city kid who was superior and looked down on the village kids. That day he was sitting under a tree. He was showing off his toys to the others. My mom bought this for me from abroad. He pressed Thomas's head on the little train. The train's horn makes a sound, and it runs on its own. When he puts it on the ground, it can run by itself, and Annie's grandchildren are drooling over it. So, Zaire, if you've had enough of it, give it to me too. Zaire gave him a disdainful glance. You're a country bumpkin. You'll make me dirty. I'm not going to play for you. You can go piss and play in the mud yourself. Cash rolled his eyes. I'm a hillbilly. But my family doesn't have a dumb sister who carves her own parents. Cash finished singing in place. He danced around and said that Zaire's sister was mute. The mute's brother is called Zaire. Zaire takes the little train. He gives the mute a brother. Zaire makes him angry. He picks up a stone from the ground and smashes it on his head, shouting that, your sister is the mute one. I don't have a sister. My mom says she's a debt collector. Sooner or later, they should die. Beat you to death, you stinking country wild child. By the time the adults found out, Cash's head had been stoned by Zaire. Zaire used a stone to cut a 10-centimeter gash in his head. A 10-centimeter wound was made. He was taken to the hospital and received 14 stitches. That afternoon after school, I came home. Found no fire to cook. Grandma and Mom were also not at home, waiting for the evening. My grandma and Mom finally came back. My mom twisted Zaire's ear and made him kneel on the floor. I was doing my homework. Without lifting her eyes, my mom hysterically yelled at him. Why are you hitting people with stones? Do you know that in order to let you come back to school, I paid a big price for you to come back to school? Can't you be a little more obedient? You have no friends in the village. Zaire reached out and pointed at me. He said it was his fault. Others are the ones who scolded me. Cash, he said, first I thought, dumb sister, Mom, didn't you say he came to collect a debt? How come you still don't let him die? I don't want this kind of sister, I want Dad. He fell first, aggrieved, and cried on. My grandma's face is green. She scolded my brother for the first time. Your sister is not a debt collector, Zoe is a good boy. My mom heard Zaire say the fight was because of me. The anger ignited at once. Zoe, I owe you in my past life, is it? Do you want to kill me and your brother? Do you know how much I have suffered because of you? I put my written homework in my book bag. Then I looked at Zaire, who was kneeling on the ground. His fat face had no trace of childish cuteness. There was only sticky snot on his face. Riverback fat squeezed into slit-sized squints. A big mouth wailing, "I can't tell you how much I loathe him." Then let the real debt collector be cut off from his children and grandchildren. He won't live past the age of 16. I was so distracted. I said something almost like a curse. Because I haven't spoken for years. My voice was hoarse. But the 4 people in the room heard it loud and clear. Grandma rushed up and hugged me. "Zoe, don't say such words, no one in our family is a debt collector." He kept reciting the words of a child as if he was possessed. God don't blame a child for talking nonsense. The old woman made amends for him. Grandma kneeled down and kowtowed frantically. He had a bruise on his head. I was so distressed that I tried to stop him. But he tried to pull me down with him. "Zoe, kneel down and kowtow to me. Tell God. What you just said is nonsense." I stubbornly didn't open my mouth. "It's like I've become a mute again." My mom laughed. "Mom, since he dares to curse, let's see if the heavens will open their eyes. If this bitch is really gone, you'll still have your daughter and your golden grandson. You still have a daughter and a golden grandson. They'll all support you." Old grandma ignored him. Biting my shoulder gently, "Do you change your words?" I remained silent and shook my head. "A word has been given. A team of horses is hard to catch up." Disappointed to the core, the old grandma. For the first time in my life, I slapped me. Not wanting to cry in front of my mom, I held back my tears and slammed the door. After running out of the house, I walked aimlessly in the countryside on the field. The space is moonlit and starry, even without lights it shines brightly. But met 2 high school students in the village under the evening self-study. The 2 brothers were about 17 or 18 years old. The older one is called Wade, and the younger one is called William, and they used to call themselves mutes. My grandma came to my door to sue my parents. For the sake of neighborhood face. Their family ruthlessly rewarded 2 people a bamboo shoots fried meat. I did not expect to run into this situation. After the 2 looked at each other. One in front of the other blocking my way. "Zoe out walking at night." I wanted to run but they held my hand. "Come and play with my brothers. Don't be in a hurry to go back, Wade." "William." The 2 men took my hand. Tugged me hard. Took me to the cornfield. I tried to cry out for help, but I couldn't make a sound. My throat felt like it was blocked by cotton, and Wade held me down in the cornfield. He had his hands all over me. Zoe was growing up. Looked at him with his smooth skin. Put his mouth on my neck. William looked a little worried. "I don't think they're going to find out. This girl's grandma's mean as hell." Wade viciously spat on the side. "What are you afraid of? Don't you want to play? If you're afraid, you go home. He's just a mute. He'll never get married in his life. We're only playing with him because we think highly of him." Even though I'm only 12 years old. I knew these 2 were up to no good. I was wearing a shirt. It was quickly ripped open by the 2 brothers, inside only my small undershirt. The 2 of them, one held down my hands. One held down my feet. Then they wanted to do whatever they wanted to me. In the heat of the moment, I blurted out that, "If you touch me." Wade and William were shocked. They didn't expect me to talk, and William is still a bit timid. "He's not mute." "I don't think so." Wade looked at me sternly. Wade gave me a stern look. "I was thinking that we should just play around. He can talk. Then we can't keep him. I'll just kill him when I'm done." My heart was cold. This Wade is just a high school student. How does he have such a ruthless heart? Killing with his mouth was as easy as killing a chicken. The brothers' hands roamed over my body, their mouths kissing and arching over me carelessly. I closed my eyes in resignation, my heart itching with hatred, thinking that even if I die, I want these 2 brothers to die with me. At this time suddenly a scream came from me. "Ah, brother, I was bitten by a snake. How to do?" William raised his arm, above as a chopstick thick bamboo leaf green snake. He was so scared that his face turned green. Wade cursed, "Damn it," and let go of me. He hurriedly went to help his brother remove the poisonous snake, and then dosed his brother with blood. If I didn't run away now, I sped off and winded my way back to the house. Almost, maybe just a little bit, I will never see my grandma again. Grandma saw that I was disheveled, my hair was disheveled, and there were still traces of bruises and red marks on my body. Where did I not understand what had happened? She cried and hugged me. "Who did it? You tell Grandma. Grandma spelled this life will kill their whole family." I cried and shook my head. My mom sat next to me like nothing, sneered at me. I said that some oaths cannot be made indiscriminately, just said the words on their own retribution. If you are so young and let someone break your body, it will be difficult for you to have a child in the future. I'm not a debt collector, I want to say I didn't let my body be broken. But my mom's eyes piled up with disdain, he could only see the grandma he wanted to see, his eyes red. Naomi, you are a mother. You say things like that, you lose your conscience. If you are going to target Zoe again, take your baby boy and get the hell out of here. You don't have a daughter like Zoe. I don't have a daughter like you. We were fine before you came back. Now you're back, you've been doing a lot of shit. I think you're the debt collector. I shouldn't have given birth to your grandma. After washing up, I checked my body again. Until I confirmed that I really hadn't been violated. Only a little sigh of relief, not yet waiting for the grandma to raise an offense. A William Wade's family came to the door. There were more than a dozen of them. Half the village squatted in front of our door to watch the fun. William Wade's mom and dad didn't come empty-handed. They carried 2 bodies. Zaire saw someone knocking on the door and went up to open it. William Wade's mom and dad dragged him to the door. Where did your sister go yesterday? Zaire didn't blink. My mom said Zoe went out looking for a man last night. I don't know when he came back. I was asleep. When my grandma heard that, she almost fainted. William Wade's mom and dad started bawling. Zoe seduced my 2 sons. Yesterday both my sons didn't come home at midnight. I went to look for them with their father. Then we found them both passed out in the cornfield. And they were still breathing. He said that Zoe must have been killed by this girl. My son, they are going to college soon. Neighbors blocked our house. Pointing at me. The village head sister-in-law spat out melon rinds and said she was only 12 years old and she could seduce men. Don't look at him as a mute. He is quite talented in other areas. Grandma held her breath. It's not my Zoe didn't do that. If you don't stop spouting shit, I'm going to be rude. Viviana chimed in, Zoe's grandmother, what are you talking about? We don't have a lot of boys in this village, and the Wells family has had to save money to pay for 2 high school kids. The Wells family has to live frugally to pay for 2 high school students to come out of high school. Now something's happened. You do not give people a statement. I scolded him, you're a fool. Our Zoe is only 12 years old. He doesn't talk much. What kind of kid is he? Don't the neighbors know him? My Zoe is honest. There was a sharp-eyed aunt who pulled me out of the house. She pulled me out of the house. The sun was beating down on my neck. There are still bruises on it. The surrounding area was like cold water thrown into a frying pan and exploded with clamor. So young to be able to seduce a man. You're still saying nothing happened even though you're bruised. Auntie, I'm sorry for your loss. Poor your 2 older sons met such a girl. A few old men also looked at me with hidden eyes. I bit my lip. I don't understand how these people can make empty rumors. William Wade. Mom and Dad looked like they were sitting on hard evidence against me. Rushed into my house with shovels. Smashed everything in sight. My mom took Zaire and ran as far away as she could. My grandma was trying to stop them. Stop it. Why are you smashing up my house? It's not Zoe who did the wrong thing. I finally said my first words in public. It's not me. I didn't hurt anyone. I didn't seduce anyone. The surrounding villagers. They looked at me like I was a demon, so this girl can talk then pretend what mute. There must be a problem. You know what? I heard that her father was killed by her. But after her dad died, her mom sewed her mouth shut with a needle. Her mom sewed up her mouth with a needle. She stopped talking again. Then her mom didn't want him anymore. And then he was able to bankrupt his mom from so far away. No wonder his brother was lighting up people's carports for no reason. His father reached out and pushed my grandma. My grandma landed on the back of her head on a stone pier. I screamed and rushed toward him. The roar in my brain didn't stop for a long time. Unlocking many long dusty memories. After all these years, I could finally speak normally. It was only at this moment that my mom looked like she had been touched. She also ran over. Grandma, however, fell unconscious on the spot. Seeing that things were getting serious, someone quickly called the police. Then the 120 came. But they didn't take her away. Because before the 120 came, Grandma died. I jumped on my grandma and cried like a tear. In the past few days since my mom came back, it was as if I had shed all my tears. I took a hard look. Zaire, who was hiding behind my mom, had no sadness or joy on her face. There was only disbelief. After the police understood the cause and effect, they went to the cornfield to search for evidence. They finally showed the village that it was Wade Williams who did this to me. It was Wade William who attempted to rape me and was bitten to death by a snake. When William was sucking the venom out of Wade, he forgot that he had wisdom teeth. But forgot that he had been suffering from inflamed wisdom teeth. Mouth ulcers. So he got infected with snake venom too. There is no evidence to prove that Wade William was killed by me. On the contrary, my grandma's death has nothing to do with their family. The one who pushed my grandma was Wade's dad. Considering their family just lost 2 sons. The police told them privately, if they can get a letter of understanding, they may be able to be sentenced to death for the murder of a dead body. I don't care what kind of mind you have, their family must have someone to bury grandma. Someone must die, when grandma was alive. You didn't go through a single day of filial piety. If you dare to sign the letter of understanding, I will never forgive you in my life. My mom looked at me without saying anything. Only after a while did she nod imperceptibly. I looked at the village chief's sister-in-law. Her family had gotten a chicken farm in the village, feeding 300 to 400 chickens. She saw me staring at her. Unnaturally twisted her body. I looked at her. Like I was talking to her. And like talking to myself. There are too many chickens in the village. What if it's too noisy for grandma to go on her way? She looked like she'd swallowed a fly, and Zoe wanted to eat chicken. I have plenty of chickens at home. If you're organizing a banquet for your grandma, remember to tell your aunt. Remember to tell auntie to order from her. I'll give you a discount. I shook my head. Your chickens are too noisy. I won't eat them. She left with a wiggle of her ass, that night. Her family's chicken coop into the weasel. Only kill not eat, a chicken nibbled 2 mouth on the throw that. 300 chickens died overnight. There wasn't even a whole chicken left. From the scene, it is purely a sadistic killing. I didn't even hear a sound from outside. Not even the sound of a chicken crowing, just an impotent roar from the village head's sister-in-law the next day. He called the police then. The police came and said they wouldn't accept it. I've never heard of cursing people and using it as evidence. I've got a shrine in front of my house. My grandma had only one unfilial daughter, my mom. There were a lot of guests. They all came to see the fun on that day, and when they arrived in front of my grandma's memorial hall, they shed a few tears and added a handful of paper money. I just knelt numbly. Seems to be separated from the surrounding layer of hairy glass. Obviously, a few days ago, my grandma even gave me long life noodles. Let me be sure to live a long and healthy life. Today I have already parted ways with his grandchildren. The fate of this world is really shallow. At this time Wade's mom came. She cried and kowtowed to my grandma. Old auntie, our family is sorry for you. We've caused you to lose your neighbors for decades. Please forgive us. My mom stood up in pain. What are you doing here? It's not enough that you killed my mom. Get lost. We won't sign a letter of understanding. No matter how much I hate my mom. I'm grateful to her for not wanting to sign a letter of understanding. I'm grateful to her. My grandma had an accident because of me. If I forgive these people so easily. I'm sorry for my grandma, in heaven's name. Wade's mom is clinging to my mom's thighs. Naomi, please have mercy on me. Please have mercy on me. I've already lost 2 sons. Without Wells, my life is over. I know you lost $200,000, you don't have much money. Our family will pay you $300,000. All you have to do is sign a letter of understanding. You don't think about yourself. Think about Zoe and Zaire. If you sign 3 papers, you'll get $300,000. Sister, my mom is shaken. He didn't say anything, but I could see it. But I could tell she was swayed by the Wells offer. I told him that, if you sign the letter of understanding, you'll never have this daughter again. The old men and women around us heard $300,000. Zoe, he is old, really know how to love people. To the old did not add burden to the family. And also the child earned $300,000. Zoe, you do not understand things. Your Uncle Wu is still in jail. You've at least slept with both of his sons. That brother used to be your father-in-law. How can you say such shameless things? Viviana, I held back the nausea that was churning in my chest. You say these things before my grandma dying hall, not afraid of retribution. Viviana choked neck, your grandma is alive. I also say so, mouth long my face. I can say whatever I want. You little girl. You have no humanity at all. I nodded my head, so you're so talkative. Tell us more about what's in your heart. This mouth should be idle and painful when not talking. As soon as I spoke, Viviana began to chatter. Wells and I have been lovers for years. When he first got married to Veronica, we hooked up. My family can't get along in bed, and it's hard with Wells in jail. Let's get your mom to sign a letter of understanding and release him." As soon as the words left her mouth, Viviana's husband punched her in the face. "You fucking went behind my back with Wells. Let me be a bastard for so many years, right? Don't hit," he covered his mouth, then found out. As long as he didn't speak. His mouth started to hurt. But open his mouth to speak. But all that came out was true. He looked at me like I was a monster, while covering his mouth. While saying his secret out loud. He ran away. Even drinking his grandson's milk powder. He wiped his feet with his mother-in-law's face cloth. The whole village knew about it. I sneered at Viviana as she fled. Then I went back to my grandma's wake. In the afternoon. I saw my mom sneaking out of the hut with Zaire on her hip. I followed her without moving. I heard Zaire gnawing on a pig's trotter. He said, "Mom, Veronica said it. You signed it. He is willing to give us $350,000. Grandma is old anyway. If she dies, she dies. With $350,000. Not only can we pay for the down payment of the house. We can rent a store and start a business." My mom glared at him. "The Wells family taught you that." Zaire took his arm and said, "Grandma is dead. You have to think about me at some point. I want to go back to school in the city. I don't want to stay in this countryside. They all bully me. They say I have a mute sister. What if my sister kills me one day?" My mom gritted her teeth. "Make up your mind you talk to that Wells family. Tell him to sneak up on me tonight. You clean up. Let's get the money. We'll sign the papers and leave." Then I told Zaire not to tell your sister's grandmother. This house is more than enough for him. I was holding the door frame. When my mom turned around, she met my eyes. I said coldly that I want to leave. "No one can leave. Grandma's not even in the ground. You're forgiving the person who killed him. Do you deserve to be Grandma's daughter?" My mom's face was slightly distorted. "I'm not pretending. I'm not worthy. I've suffered so much for so many years outside. It's not that I don't want to support your grandma. It's that he doesn't have that fortune. You have to think about your brother. Your brother doesn't have a father. He'll have to get married and have kids. If your brother is well off, that's the only way the He family will have a future." I laughed coldly. I turned around and went into the shrine. My mom scolded me from behind. "You're the one who lured the Wu family here. You said I was unfilial. You killed your grandma. You really love your grandma. You should have stayed with her. You should have died." I turned around and smiled at her. "It's you who deserve to die. I'm not going to die. My grandma wants me to be healthy." After a while, Veronica came over. My mom seemed to gamble. Signed the letter of understanding to him in front of me. At the same time he signed the letter of understanding. There was a sudden gust of wind outside the window. There was lightning and thunder in the sky. Lightning struck 10 meters away from the hearth. My mom and Veronica were scared silly. Including some older people in the village who gave by a hand. They pointed their fingers at my mom. "Naomi, your mom has a grudge. You should kowtow to your mom." My mom's heart was pounding. She turned back to the black and white photo of my grandma and knelt down. "Mom, I can't help it. You should feel sorry for your daughter. I don't have a father or a husband, and you're gone, Mom. I have no one to help me in the future. I can't gamble with Zaire's future." Standing beside him, I looked down at him. He makes betrayal look like a simple gamble. He betrayed me. Zaire reached out to my mom. "It must be Zoe, he's talking nonsense. He's a liar. Every time he says something, it comes true." My mom raised her head afterward and looked at me too. "Do you want your grandma to have a hard time walking in the afterlife?" He was in a rage. As if I was the one who did something wrong. The people in the village are unanimously shying away from me. Someone brought up the matter of the village chief's sister-in-law's chicken coop. "It's like the mayor's sister-in-law's family. Zoe said the chickens were too noisy. This girl has such a poisonous mouth. This is not a crow's mouth." Some of the people who came to the Wu family's door at that time. The people who stood up for the Wu family are starting to get scared. Outside the window the thunderstorm rumbled and lasted for a while. Gradually stopped. My mom also stood up with a smile on her face. "Your grandma has forgiven me. I'll take Zaire back to Shenzhen tonight. You can take care of the rest on your own. Your grandma has raised you for 8 years. You should do your part. I don't understand why grandma is so kind. How could she give birth to such an unfilial daughter like my mom? You're overjoyed. I told you no one will leave this village. The guy next to me just said I'm a crow's mouth. Now that the thunderstorm has stopped. I'm getting bold. I think thunderstorms come and go in June and July. It's a bit of a coincidence. A boy a few years older than me stood up for his elders and reprimanded me. Zoe. You think you are the king of heaven. Don't go. I'm going. I'll see what you'll do. He was just playing rough. There was a terrific rumble outside the door. Someone screamed about a landslide. A landslide has blocked the village road. I looked at him with a straight face. He gurgled and gulped. He panicked and ran out. Zoe, you demon, I'm not afraid of you. I'm going to find someone to clean you up. I swept my eyes over my mom and the others who were ashen-faced. My grandma is quite lonely on her way to the Yellow Springs, Zaire screamed. That's your grandma's company, you can keep him company yourself. My mom said it's good for your grandma to die. He died so we could live in a house. His words were just falling, and it was at that moment. The boy who ran out just now. The boy who had just run out, came back with a big black dog. Pointing at me, he yelled at the big black dog, Wang Kai. Go and bite this demoness to death. Crowds of people have flashed to the side. That black, the dog is as strong as a small calf. Listen to the master's order. Pounce on me. Crossed me and jumped on Zaire beside me. His hands were covered with the smell of greasy lard. This dog is not professionally trained. It went a little crazy at the smell. It pounced on Zaire. Zaire screamed miserably, rolled his eyes and fainted. The dog didn't let go. It bit Zaire's crotch hard. He tore off a piece of soft meat and swallowed it. The boy who brought the dog in sat on the ground in shock. My mom was so anxious that she yelled, "Help me, what are you waiting for?" It was only then that the men came back to their senses, and with 7 hands and 8 feet. They carried Zaire to the village health center. Some people wanted to snap Zaire's lifeblood out of the dog's mouth, to see if it could still be attached. Jingtua crowd ran away. I mumbled to old age, you see the debt collector broke off. This time outside the hearse. Suddenly appeared a young man about 20 years old. Wearing a purple Taoist robe. Self-concernedly walked into the hearth. Then stared at me. This is the person the village head's sister-in-law invited to cure the yellow fairy. A few hundred chickens died. Instead, he was invited here. The man frowned when he saw me. For his own selfish desires, he used his own obsession. Using heavenly thunder also cursed so many people. As for that, how many more people do you have to harm before you stop? I added a handful of paper money to my grandma's face pot. Others put me in front. It's not too much for me to do what I did. This is also my grandma to protect me all the way. I can't let him go without a good reason. Naomi doesn't deserve to be my grandma's daughter. It's good to go down there and keep him company. Bryson, you shouldn't mind your own business. Bryson smiled at me. You have feelings for a pen. Olivia is afraid to cry. The mayor's sister-in-law asked him in disbelief. Bryson knows this girl. The hundreds of chickens in my house are not the ghost of this girl. Bryson plausible. Bryson said a yes and no. The village head's sister-in-law did not understand. That is or is not. He reached out and pointed at me and said, this is not a mortal. This is the judge's pen in Olivia's hand. A prophecy. Ever heard of it? That's him. Every word he says contains the laws of heaven and earth. That's why it triggers the heaven and earth. In a way. You're guilty and he judges the law. So yes and no. He looked at the villagers in the hearth. You have been cursed for bullying their grandchildren in the past. But there is no loss at all. The cowardly villagers kneeled down for him. Bryson, help. We are a small family and we don't know what we're doing. All we know is how to take advantage. We're not afraid of the weak and the tough. But we don't deserve to die. Bryson said he wanted us to stay with his grandmother. We don't want to die. Bryson nodded. He said to me, Zoe, they did something wrong. But they don't deserve to die. You say a way to resolve it. I turned my head away. Does he really think I'm a child to be bullied? The Wells brothers tried to rape and kill me. Damn Wells parents for not knowing the difference between right and wrong. They're home invaders. Took my grandma's life. And they tried to get away with it with money. Damn Zaire for talking about the wrong things, and for ordering the carport. Naomi's even worse. Sewed my mouth with a needle when I was a kid. Then he threw me to my grandma. He's not a good mother. He deserves to die as a son, and these villagers are all accomplices. I don't think I'm at fault. Bryson scratched his head. Cursed you really animals ah. How to catch a good man bully. This you let me how to give you guys dissolve no more. A moment he asked me tentatively, your grandma just left yesterday, the soul has not gone far. I will change him back. But the old man's body was hit so hard. Then the body is not much better, they need someone to take care of them. Are you willing to do that? I blurted out that I was willing. I'll take care of my grandma for the rest of my life. As long as grandma lives. Bryson sighed and said, take back the curse. I'll cast the spell right away. I shook my head, you cast the spell first. I'll take back the curse as soon as she's alive, said Bryson, who saw that I was not negotiable. At that moment, he turned his head and asked those villagers. Do this soul invocation spell array is quite expensive, ha? You see who pays the money. The villagers look at each other. Bryson, who has just been working for the people in a fairyland style, is talking about money. The village chief swallowed his saliva and said, Master, how much is this formation for invoking the soul? Bryson glared at him with hatred and resentment. How can we talk about money? This is the law gold. It's not like I was given a friendly price of 650,000 francs. Not a penny less. Just mouth-broken villagers. Looked at the village entrance blocked by the landslide. And think of Zaire still in the infirmary fainting. One by one tearful eyes said, we give this money we out. Zoe grandma so good aunt. If you can come back. If we can come back, what's the point of paying some money? I took a special look at this person. This is Wade, his cousin. Uncle pinched the root of the thigh to say. It hurt him at the bottom. I wiped my tears. Zoe took it to heart when I pretended to thank the folks for being so kind to my grandma. Carefully calculated, the family will have to shell out at least 40,000 to 50,000 yuan. I guess the ruined intestines are purple. Bryson immediately got busy. The mouth muttered the spell. After half an hour, Bryson finished sitting in the law. Exhausted, also ignored the image of sitting on the ground. After a few more moments, I heard a deep exhale coming from the coffin. The next moment grandma sat up. I couldn't wait to dive headfirst into his arms. Looking at him with tears streaming down my face. Grandma gently. I miss you so much. My mom at this time walked from outside the hearth. Came in cloaked hair. No better than a female ghost. You let your brother go. It's me who has wronged you and your grandma all these years. Didn't make Zaire good. Can you give mom another chance? Let your brother go. He's your own brother. My grandma was so smart that she gave my mom a big slap in the face. Throwing my mom a big slap in the face. Exhausted and panting herself. Naomi, you get out of here. I'll pretend I never had you as a daughter. You don't have me as a mom either. My grandma stood up with my help. She looked down at my mom. My mom saw my grandma come back from the dead. She screamed in fear. I looked at my grandma in pain. How much should my hand hurt now? My mom watched as my grandma finally left in disgrace. She took her precious son with her. I heard he went after the boy who set the dog on him. In the end, he was underage, and Zaire's case was closed, and Naomi took Zaire with her. After Naomi took Zaire away, she and her grandma went back to the quiet days of the past. The difference is that the village people are in awe of me and my grandma. Nowadays, when a child in the village says, duck, when the adults in the family hear it, they have to kick their asses. Fear of reminding me of bad memories, when I was in junior high school. When I was in junior high school, the village was demolished. Grandma took me to the city with money. Bought a house, let me study in the city. I leaned on his shoulder. Thought about my 12th birthday wish. Grandma and grandpa to be together forever and have a happy home. Afterward, Bryson secretly sent me so many messages. You're done with your grandma. What's your next step? Olivia is looking for you like crazy. Olivia's been looking for you like crazy. She's been under the bed a few times. I was expressionless. He was the one who accidentally threw me into the reincarnation well for tens of thousands of years. It's time for me to take a vacation. It's not easy to be a human for once. Of course I should live this life well, be healthy and live long.